For 15 years, I played the corporate game and did everything right. When I finally chose my own life instead of another promotion, they mocked me, then reached out in silence. I used to wake up before the sun. Every day, I would roll out of bed, already thinking about emails, deadlines, meetings, numbers. My phone would buzz with messages before I even had my coffee. Quick question never meant quick. Need your eyes on this meant cancel lunch. I was 39 years old, holding a director title at a major tech firm, and I had not had a real weekend in years. On paper, I was winning. Big house, big paycheck, stock options, the kind of resume that made recruiters slide into my inbox weekly. I wore the right suits. I shook the right hands. I smiled through stress headaches and clapped during every quarterly town hall like my future depended on it, because it kind of did. But the truth? I was tired. Not just physically, but soul deep tired. I would come home to an empty house, crash on the couch in clothes I never really chose to wear, and think, is this it? The same routine, every single day. Like clockwork. Like I was part of a machine I could not step away from without breaking something. My name is Matt, and for over 15 years, I was one of those guys who chased titles like they were oxygen. First it was associate, then manager, then senior manager, and eventually director. At each step, I thought the next one would make me feel something. Whole, important, seen. But the promotions just meant more work, more hours, more people expecting things. And the bonuses? They disappeared into stress spending, stuff I bought just to feel a little reward for the hell I was putting myself through. At the office, they called me dependable, reliable, a team player. I was the guy who picked up the slack when someone else dropped it, who stayed late without being asked, who said yes even when he wanted to scream no. And I got rewarded for it. Kind of. I remember one day, maybe a year before everything changed, I stayed in the office until almost midnight finishing a presentation for a senior VP. I had skipped dinner, my eyes were burning, and I had not seen the sun in 3 days. When I finally closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair, I glanced around the floor. Empty. No one else there. Just me and the janitor, who nodded like he recognized me by now. That night, I walked to my car and sat there in silence. I did not even start the engine, just stared at the wheel and thought, what exactly am I doing this for? It was not for love. I had not dated anyone seriously in almost 5 years. I missed birthdays, weddings, even my niece's high school graduation. She sent me a text. Hope your meeting was worth it. That one stung. It was not for peace, either. I had not slept without grinding my teeth since 2017. My doctor kept telling me to cut stress. My therapist asked when I last felt fulfilled. I laughed and said, next quarter, maybe. But the honest answer? I did not even know anymore. And then came the email. A short one. Just a few lines. But it kicked off everything. And it was not even from my boss. The email came from someone in HR. Not even someone I knew personally. Just a generic name with a smiling headshot in the company directory. Subject: New Initiative, Work-Life Balance Check-In. It was one of those mass-sent messages. I almost deleted it. But something made me read it. Maybe because I had just finished 12 hours without a break. Maybe because my inbox was so full of stress that this was the only thing that felt harmless. It talked about how the company was prioritizing wellness, offering one-on-one career vision sessions for long-term employees. Sounded like corporate fluff. But one line stood out to me. Are you building a life you actually want to live, or just maintaining one you never questioned? I sat back in my chair and read that again. That was the moment something in me cracked. Or maybe clicked. The next morning, I signed up. Figured I would sit through the call, nod along, and maybe get some generic advice about managing my inbox or blocking off lunch on my calendar. But when I logged in, the woman on the other end, Jennifer, mid-30s, looked like someone who read books for fun, asked me just one thing. So Matt, if I gave you a blank slate right now, no bills, no titles, no pressure, what would you spend your time doing? I froze. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I had no answer. Not even a fake one. I had spent so long playing the game that I forgot why I started. Forgot what life even looked like outside performance reviews and client decks. After that call, I could not stop thinking about it. I walked around my neighborhood that night, just pacing under the streetlights, wondering what had happened to me. I used to write music. I used to help out at a local shelter. I used to laugh for real, not just the polite kind you do on Zoom. That night, I dug through an old box in my closet and found a beat-up notebook I had kept in my 20s. It was full of ideas, dreams, stuff I wanted to build, places I wanted to see, people I wanted to become. Most of those pages were untouched. The next few weeks were weird. Something had shifted in me, and it would not shift back. I started noticing things. How quiet my apartment felt after work. How little sunlight I got each day. How many people in the office looked like I felt burned out, but pretending they were fine. Then, one Friday, I did something I had never done before. I took a sick day, not because I was actually sick, but because I needed to think. I sat at a coffee shop, no laptop, no work phone, just me and a pen. And for the first time in over a decade, I wrote down a different kind of goal list. It did not include promotions. It included, get back into music, see my niece's graduation next year, sleep 8 hours, make something with my hands, be in control of my own time. I stared at that list for a long time. And right then, sitting at that table with coffee gone cold and people rushing in and out around me, I realized something simple but terrifying. I was not tired from working hard. I was tired from working on the wrong things. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. The following Monday, I made a decision. I was going to leave. I did not storm out. There was no big speech, no flipping tables or telling the CEO what I really thought of his quarterly vision slides. It was quiet. I sat down with my boss, Dan, and I told him I was done. He looked at me like I had just confessed to a crime, blinked a few times, then leaned back in his chair and said, "You sure you want to do this, Matt? You're on track for VP next cycle." I told him I knew. He asked if I had another offer. I said no. He asked if it was burnout. I said maybe, but not the kind you fix with a week in Cabo. The kind that creeps into your bones and starts rearranging your sense of purpose. Dan paused, gave me that corporate half-smile, and said, "Man, you're too good to just walk away." I told him I was not walking away. I was walking toward something else. The next few days felt weird. Word spread fast, even though I had not made any kind of announcement. People started swinging by my desk with the same look, half curious, half suspicious. Some were supportive in that fake nice way. Others did not even try to hide it. "You're quitting? Did something happen? Man, I wish I could do what you're doing, but I've got a mortgage." I guess some of us still like a challenge. I laughed off most of it, but it stuck with me. There was this unspoken belief floating through the building. Like if you stepped off the ride, you must have failed. Like staying in the race, no matter how miserable, was the only proof that you were worth something. One guy, Kevin from finance, actually leaned in and said, "This feels like giving up." I nodded. Yeah, maybe I'm just done competing in a game I don't want to win anymore. He stared at me like I had spoken in another language. The funny part is, I still worked through my notice period. Still hit all my deadlines. Still trained the guy taking over my role. That is just who I was, loyal to the end, even when I knew the game was rigged. On my last day, they gave me a card. One of those oversized ones where everyone writes generic stuff like, "Good luck," or "Keep in touch." A few people wrote longer notes, but even those felt like they were saying goodbye to a coworker, not a person. No send-off lunch. No cake. Just a handshake from Dan and a "let me know if you ever change your mind." I walked out of that building and into the parking lot. The air was cold and sharp, the kind that wakes you up. I sat in my car for a minute, staring at the entrance I had walked through thousands of times. And I smiled. Not because I was proud, not because I was brave, but because, for the first time in years, I felt something I had forgotten even had a name. I felt free. But of course, freedom always comes with a cost. And mine was about to show up fast. The first week after I left felt like a vacation, except I did not have to check emails, wear a badge, or pretend I cared about quarterly OKRs. I slept in, made real breakfasts, went for walks without my phone glued to my palm. I reconnected with my niece, took my dog on actual adventures instead of quick sidewalk loops between meetings. For a minute, I felt like I had broken some invisible code, like I had escaped something most people do not even realize they are trapped in. But then the silence started to get loud. No more calendar pings. No just circling back emails. No reason to wear a watch. People stopped texting. I thought some of my coworkers, well, former coworkers, might reach out. Ask how I was doing. Maybe grab coffee. Nothing. The ones who used to slap me on the back in meetings or tag me in team memes just disappeared. Worse, Some started treating me like I had some kind of career disease. Like if they got too close, they might catch it. The quitting virus. The lost potential flu. I started getting calls from recruiters again, but not for anything new. They had not heard I left yet. One even pitched me a job identical to the one I had just walked away from. I told her I was stepping back from corporate life for now. She paused and said, "That sounds risky." Risky. I had given 15 years to a system that nearly broke me. And choosing myself was risky? Then came the jokes. One guy from marketing DM'd me on LinkedIn and said, "How's early retirement treating you, Grandpa?" Someone else commented on a photo I posted from a hiking trip. "Nice to see you enjoying fun employment." The tone was always playful, but I could feel the edge behind it. Like they thought I had tapped out, wasted the investment, flushed the promise down the drain. Even my own cousin asked if I was okay. She said it in that worried voice people use when they think you might be having a breakdown. Just want to make sure you're not, going through something. I was going through something. Clarity. But that is the thing most people do not get. Freedom looks a lot like failure, especially to people still trapped in the machine. There were nights I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I had made a huge mistake. My savings were fine, but they were not infinite. I had no set plan, no backup offer, just this wild idea that I could build a slower life on purpose. Some days I felt light, like I had shed a heavy coat I had been wearing too long. Other days I felt invisible, like I had stopped existing in the world everyone else still took seriously. And then, right when I was starting to question it all, someone from my old job reached out. Not to catch up, not to grab coffee, but to ask for help. And that message changed everything. It was a message from Alicia, one of the senior managers I used to work with. She had always been sharp, polished, the kind of person who could run a team while juggling 3 decks and still find time to reply LOL in Slack like she was not drowning. Back in the office, she was someone I respected, someone I thought would go the distance. Her message started casual. "Hey Matt, hope you're doing well. Been meaning to reach out." I expected a friendly check-in. What I got was something else entirely. She said she had been thinking a lot about our last hallway conversation, one I barely remembered. She asked how I had known it was time to leave. Said things had gotten heavy. Then she said this: "I thought staying meant stability, but lately it feels more like I'm just waiting to break." That line hit me in the chest, because I knew exactly what she meant. Turns out the company had gone through another round of layoffs. Quiet ones. No big announcements. Just a few people missing from the calendar. Some teams got folded into others. Projects vanished mid-sprint. The pressure had doubled. And now the ones still standing were expected to carry the weight. Burnout was no longer a whisper. It was a roar. Alicia said she had not taken a real day off in 8 months. That even on weekends, she felt guilty doing nothing. She said she was tired all the time. And the worst part? Everyone around her looked just as drained, but nobody was talking about it. Just fake smiles and phrases like, "We'll push through." I sat with her message for a while before answering. I did not want to give her a TED talk. I just said what was true. I told her I did not leave because I hated the job. I left because I hated who I was becoming in it. I said stepping away was not easy, but I finally realized that staying was costing me more than quitting ever could. She replied the next day, said she was jealous, said she was scared, said she might not have the guts. A week later, she sent another message. She had put in her notice. I will never forget what she wrote. "You were the first person who made it feel possible." After that, it started happening more often. Little pings in my inbox. DMs from people I had not talked to in months. Former coworkers, ex-clients. Even a guy from accounting who barely made eye contact before. They all said the same thing, in different ways. "I have been thinking about what you did. How did you plan it? Was it worth it?" They were not asking because they wanted to hear a success story. They were asking because they were quietly suffocating. And they needed to know if there was a way out that did not end in ruin. I never claimed to have all the answers. But I did know this. Freedom is not about having no obligations. It is about choosing the ones that matter. And the more I lived that way, the more I realized something wild. Leaving was never the risk. Staying was. But of course, not everyone saw it that way. And one message in particular brought a storm I did not see coming. The message came from Chris. Now, Chris was not just any old coworker. He was the guy, the golden boy, fast-tracked. First one in the office, last one out. Slick suits, perfect LinkedIn posts, always talking about building the legacy. Back when I left, he was the loudest one in the room about it. told people I had cracked under pressure, said I was wasting potential. I even heard through the grapevine that he called me a cautionary tale. I did not hate him for it. Honestly, I pitied him. Chris was the kind of guy who thought hustle was a personality, who believed rest was weakness. He would reply to 2 a.m. emails with "on it," like it was a badge of honor. So when I saw his name pop up in my inbox, I assumed it was a mistake. It was not. The message started like a robot wrote it. Professional. Hello, Matt. Hope all is well. I am reaching out with a quick question about your transition out of corporate. I am considering a few options myself and would appreciate your perspective. I blinked. Chris? That Chris. This was the guy who used to say things like, "Real winners don't stop." The guy who literally mocked someone for taking paternity leave. Now he was asking me how I left. At first, I thought about ignoring him. But then I figured, what the hell? People are allowed to change, even if they are late to the party. So I replied. Simple. I told him I left when I realized I was building someone else's dream at the expense of my own. That it was scary. That I felt lost at first. But that the stillness had taught me more than 1,000 meetings ever could. He wrote back fast. Too fast. And then, in the middle of a long paragraph about reassessing priorities, he slipped in something I did not expect. My wife's been asking why I'm never home anymore. My kids started calling me sir as a joke. That line. That broke something open. For the first time, I saw the human under the performance. He was not chasing the title anymore. He was running from the fact that he might have missed too much already. We kept talking, and I realized he was not just thinking about leaving. He was terrified of staying. But like so many others, he was trapped in this idea that stepping off the path meant falling into the void. A few days later, he messaged me again. Said something had happened. The company had slashed bonuses. Another unexpected restructuring. He had managed to survive it, barely. But his team? Gutted. Half gone. No warning. Just locked out of systems overnight. And suddenly, all those extra hours, all that loyalty, all that grind he used to worship, it meant nothing. He ended the message with, "They didn't even say thank you. Just handed me 3 new projects and told me to keep things stable." That was when it really clicked, for him and for me. The system does not love you. It uses you until you break, and then it finds someone else who is still naive enough to call that loyalty. I did not gloat. I did not throw his old words back at him. I just said, "Now you understand why I left." Chris went quiet for a few days. Then he told me he had booked a week off. No calls. No check-ins. First time in years. It was not everything, but it was a start. And just like that, another crack formed in the machine. But not everyone was ready to break free. One person, in particular, had been watching from the sidelines. And when she reached out, everything I thought I had left behind came rushing back. Her name was Elena. We had not spoken in over 3 years. She was part of the old life, someone I dated back when the job was my personality, back when I measured my worth in performance reviews and bonus tiers. She had seen me at my worst, stressed out, disconnected, always checking Slack during dinner, canceling weekends last minute because something came up. The last time we spoke, it ended badly. I had stood her up on her birthday, missed the whole thing because my VP asked for one last push on a Friday night project. She told me through tears, "I'm tired of competing with your laptop." I said I was doing it for us. She said, "What's the point if you're never here?" And that was it. She left. I barely chased. I told myself I would circle back when things calmed down. They never did. So when her name lit up my screen, I just stared. The message was short, casual on the surface, but there was weight beneath the words. "Hey, saw your name pop up in a podcast. You left the firm? That's unexpected. Would love to hear how you're doing. Coffee." For a second, I considered ignoring it. Too much history. Too many jagged edges. But curiosity has a funny way of turning into something heavier if you let it sit too long. So I said yes. We met at a quiet spot near the river. She looked the same, but softer, lighter, like someone who had done the work to clean out her life. We talked for hours, not just about the past, but about what had changed since. She told me she had started her own consulting business. Smaller clients, fewer hours, more intention. She made less, but smiled more. Then she looked me dead in the eye and said something I was not ready for. "You could have had this years ago, Matt. You just couldn't see it." I nodded. She was right. I told her I had been addicted. Not to success, but to validation. To feeling needed. To being the one who came through. The dependable guy. She said something then that stuck with me more than anything else anyone had said since I left. It's not that you chose work over me. It's that you never chose yourself. So how could you ever really choose anyone else? That hit like a brick to the chest. She was not trying to guilt me. She was just speaking a truth I had been too afraid to say out loud. We walked in silence for a bit after that. Then she hugged me goodbye, not like someone reopening a door, but like someone finally closing it the right way. As she walked away, I realized something strange. I did not feel regret. I felt relief. Not because I had moved on, but because I finally understood why she had. That night, I sat on my balcony and watched the lights of the city blink in and out. So many of those windows were probably filled with people just like I had been, glued to laptops, chasing goals that never felt like enough. And for the first time in my life, I did not feel like I was missing out. But the past has sharp teeth. And one more person was about to remind me just how hard it is to leave the race without scars. It was my brother, Mark. He called me out of the blue one night, voice clipped and cold, like he had already decided how the conversation would go. We had never been close, not really. Growing up, he was the straight shooter. Steady job, wife, kids, lawn that looked like it came from a magazine. He was the one my parents bragged about at cookouts. And I was the one with potential. The one who made the big bucks, but never showed up to family dinners. The one who was always busy, always important. So when I answered, I half expected it to be a favor, or maybe some bad news. But no, he got straight to the point. I heard you quit. I said, yeah, I did. Then came the pause. That long, heavy silence people use when they are deciding whether to pretend they care or just skip to the judgment. You finally burned out? He asked. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I woke up, I said. Another pause. Then he sighed like I had let the whole family down. You know, people work their whole lives to get where you were, he said. And you just threw it away because you were tired of working too much? I wanted to snap. Wanted to ask him how many birthdays I had missed. How many holidays I had spent on flights instead of couches. How many years I had chased promotions while watching my life blur past me like traffic on the freeway. But instead, I just said, I did not throw anything away. I just stopped pretending it was the prize. He did not get it. I could hear it in the way he changed the subject. Asked about my finances. Said things like, well, as long as you're being smart about it. Then, like he could not help himself, he added, just be careful. People will think you failed. There it was. That old fear again. Not failing, but looking like I did. And maybe that is what held most people back. Not the risk of changing their life, but the risk of being misunderstood. After the call, I sat in silence. It was the first time since I left that I felt truly alone. Because here was the truth. Not everyone will clap when you reclaim your life. Some will whisper. Some will roll their eyes. Some, like my brother, will make it sound like you walked off a mountain just before reaching the summit. But they never ask what the view looked like from up there. They never ask what it cost. That night, I took a walk. No headphones. No destination. Just streets I had never noticed before, even though I had lived here for years. I passed by a couple dancing in their living room. An old man painting on his porch. A kid building something out of scrap wood, tongue poking out in concentration like it was the most important thing in the world. And I realized, this was it. Life was not a title, not a bonus, not a line on a resume. It was this. Unfiltered, unpaid, unscored. But damn, it was real. Still, one more moment was coming. One final message. And it would prove that walking away had never been failure. It had been freedom. It was a Tuesday morning. I was out in the garden pulling weeds, still half asleep, wearing old jeans and a hoodie I had owned since college. No alarms. No calendar reminders. Just sunlight and dirt under my nails. That was when I got the email. It was from someone I never expected to hear from again. Jordan. He used to be the one everyone wanted to be. Corner office, fast promotions, name dropped in every high-performer meeting. At one point, he managed the whole West Division. When he spoke, people listened. He carried himself like the job was his identity. And in a way, it was. Back then, he barely acknowledged me unless I was bringing him something. Numbers, updates, reports. I do not think we ever had a real conversation that lasted more than 5 minutes. So seeing his name in my inbox, that was enough to make me sit down in the dirt. His message was long, wordy, but under all the polished phrasing and hope you're well fluff, there was a crack. He had been let go. After 15 years. No warning. No thank you. Just a short meeting with HR and a security escort out of the building. He said it felt like his entire identity had been erased in under 30 minutes. And then he wrote something that made me stare at the screen for a long time. I used to laugh when you left. I thought you had given up. But now I think maybe you just saw it all coming before the rest of us. He told me he had been watching from the sidelines. Quietly, watching how I had rebuilt something simpler. Something calmer. He said he envied it, even when he did not understand it. He asked if we could talk. Just talk. Not about jobs. Not about networking. Just about what life could be. And he was not the only one. By the end of that week, more former coworkers reached out. People who used to avoid me in the break room. People who once cracked jokes about Matt's early midlife crisis. Now they were asking questions like, how did you know it was time to leave? Do you ever regret it? Is it really possible to live on less and still feel more? One even asked how to talk to their partner about leaving the job without sounding like they had lost their mind. And I realized something. The tide was turning. Quietly. Slowly. Behind the LinkedIn posts and the fake smiles and Zoom calls. People were breaking. And the ones who used to mock me? Now they were looking at my life not with pity, but with hope. That maybe, just maybe, they could do it too. But I did not brag. I did not gloat. Because the truth was, I still had doubts. Still had fears. Still had nights when I stared at my ceiling and wondered if I had enough saved, or if I should have waited another year. But I also had this. Mornings that started with silence instead of alarms. Work that felt like building instead of bleeding. Time. Real time. And for once, I owned it. But there was one last thing I needed to say, and it would not be easy. I ran into an old colleague last week, Karen. She was one of the few who never laughed when I left. Back then, she just looked at me like she was watching someone disappear into the woods with no map. We bumped into each other at the farmer's market. She was still in heels, still holding her phone like it was oxygen. She smiled when she saw me. Said I looked different. Happy, she said, like it was a surprise. We talked for a bit. Nothing deep. Just surface stuff. How she was still at the firm. How things had changed since I left. How a new guy had taken my old role and was already burning out. Then, as she turned to leave, she asked me something quietly. Do you ever miss it? I did not answer right away. I just looked around, at the open air, the sound of kids laughing behind us, the smell of fresh bread and soil and sweat. And then I said, I miss who I thought I was, not who I really was. She nodded, but I could tell she did not fully get it. Most people do not. Here is the thing. Freedom is not flashy. It is not a yacht or a six-figure exit or some perfectly curated Instagram of your new life. It is smaller. It is sitting with your morning coffee and not checking your email. It is taking a walk without needing to justify it. It is choosing your work instead of being assigned it. It is calling your parents on a random Tuesday. It is not racing anyone. Not anymore. You stop chasing. And people will not understand that. Not at first. They will call it giving up. They will call it failure. Because to them, still inside the system, the only thing worse than being burned out is not being in the fire at all. But eventually, they will see the smoke. They will feel the heat. And some of them will remember you. The one who walked out. The one who left without a plan and found a life instead. Now, when I think about those years, the grind, the late nights, the applause that never filled me, I do not feel anger. I feel distance. Like watching an old version of myself through a foggy window. He was trying. Desperate to matter. Terrified of wasting time, while wasting all of it. And I want to tell him, you did not fail by walking away. You failed by staying so long in something that never loved you back. But you made it out. And you are still here. Still building. Still breathing. That is the ending. Not a promotion. Not a title. Not a raise. Just peace. And to the ones still stuck in the race, I will leave the door open. But I will not wait.